This is my 2016 Audi A3, and we're gonna be doing some maintenance on it today. I'm gonna go ahead and give a quick overview of the car before we get to the maintenance. So to start off with, cosmetically, obviously it is lowered, it has wheels, and it has a few other things on the back. Now, we're gonna start off with the wheels. These are 18x9 peelers off an S4. If you're in the Audi or Volkswagen world, you know what those are. By far my favorite stock wheel of these cars. Mine are somewhat beat up. They're not in the best condition. They definitely need redone, but they fit very, very well, and I'm very happy with them. Now, I would like some S5 peelers at some point because they are a lot more concave, but honestly, these ones are pretty nice, and I'll probably stick with them for now. I mean, as you can see, this stuff does not come off either. Well, yeah, it does. As far as suspension goes, I am on SoloWorks coilovers, and these are not quite maxed out, but they're very low. And I mean, the car sits very, very nicely. I love how this looks. And obviously, it's not like crazy low to the ground. I daily this thing, so I can't have it too low. But for a daily, I mean, the fitment is very good. It's fairly low for a daily. And the rear is also very low. And I don't know if you can tell, but I was rubbing at some point very hard. And I actually ate some paint up and messed up my clear a little bit here, so I had to pull the spacers off the rear. But overall, it's a pretty good fitment for the car. Coming to the back of the car, we have a carbon fiber duck bill. I believe this is ECS, but there is a lot of eBay brands that sell this same exact wing, so it's hard to tell what it actually is. Clear coat's failing a little bit. I can re-clear that at some point, but I'm not too worried about it. I love how this wing looks. It is beautiful, and it fits the body line so perfectly. We also have this awesome dent here. Now, this was from the previous owner. This was not me, but a construction crew was going down the street and ended up hitting the car. So we have a beautiful little dent there. And as far as damage goes, that's the only damage on the car. I mean, it's a beautiful car. All right, now let's get to the fun stuff, under the hood. So this car currently makes around 330 wheel, and it's an extremely fun car. And for what it is, it's almost got nothing done to it, and it's making that power, so pretty impressive. Now, this is a 2.0 turbo. It has a downpipe, full 3-inch exhaust out the back. Pretty much a straight pipe. There is a resonator, but other than that, it's a straight pipe. I have a turbo inlet. There's also an intake, of course. And then underneath this cover here, we have RS3 coils. And then obviously my maintenance is already done, so this is after the video. But we have all of our maintenance done there. And I'll go ahead and show some of the exhaust. So this is a full custom 3-inch exhaust all the way out the back. It's kind of hard to show you. But this thing is rowdy whenever you're actually on it. But with the DSG, it makes it nice and quiet whenever you're just putting around town. And then when you actually get on the car, it is super loud. And then we have a Unitronic Stage 2 tune on this thing, as well as a burble tune. Of course, you gotta have the burble tune with the Audi. And honestly, it sounds pretty good. So I'll probably get some sound clips in here. But we're gonna go ahead and move on to the interior. As far as the interior goes, the car is fairly stock. I mean, they just come with nice interiors to begin with. We have the black on black interior with the headliner as well, which isn't too common with these cars. We have a nice suede steering wheel, and the stitching's obviously coming off that I need to fix at some point. But we also have paddle shifters. These are a game changer with the DSG. You cannot beat that. They're beautiful. And in this video, you're actually gonna see that little gauge right there be installed. Okay, so that is the complete overview of my daily. And I know some of you guys have wanted to see it because I don't really post it too much, and you have seen it in the videos, but that is the full overview of the car. And we're gonna go ahead and get into the maintenance now. I've got the Audi in the garage, and I've got all my parts laid out here, so this is what we're gonna be doing today. So to start off, we've got the full oil change, liquid moly, of course. Filter, I got the oil cap, which I'll go ahead and explain that, but that's a big part of it as well. We got spark plugs, PCV with the PCV vent, and then I have a P3 gauge as well that I found on Marketplace, which I've already verified this works. Got an air filter, and then I got this just because I'm lazy, but that's what we'll be doing today. To start off, I'm gonna go ahead and get the car up in the air. Now, this car is obviously a lot lower than stock, so you can't just drive it up on ramps. So I'm gonna put it on those ramps right there, but in order to do that, I'm gonna go ahead and take my jack and jack up the car and put it on. So we'll go ahead and get that done real quick, and I'll get back. All right, car is up in the air, and I'm gonna go ahead and show you the problem that I've been having. So if you look on the back side, it's completely wet. It goes all the way down the side of the engine, and I'm thinking it's the oil cap, so that's why I have one. And once I crawl into the car, I'll show you even more, but there is oil everywhere, so this car is leaking a lot of oil. So that's the goal today, is to figure that out. Now, PCV doesn't necessarily need done, but I'm gonna do it anyways, just because it's very common on these cars. But I'm gonna go ahead and do the oil change and start getting into things, and I'll record when I think I need to. Okay, firstly, I'd like to start out by saying I'm doing this in a polo after work. So that alone, I mean, you gotta like the video at this point. I don't care if you like the video or not, as far as like you personally, but you need to like the video. Like, this is dedication right here. You don't find this anywhere else. Also, I'll go ahead and flip the camera around, and I'll show you our slight oil leak. So keep in mind that last time I did this oil change, which was approximately 4,000 miles ago, this under tray was completely clean, like literally spotless. And this is what we look like right now. I mean, do you see the amount of oil that is underneath this car? It is absolutely atrocious. This is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous leak. And if all this is coming from the oil cap, then I don't know whether to be annoyed or happy that it's an easy fix, because that's a ridiculous amount of oil to be coming out of an oil cap. I'm gonna assume that this is not just from the oil cap, but I guess we'll see. But I currently have the oil draining right now, so we're almost ready to get that done and start on other things. I'm gonna go ahead and get this filter off, which, by the way, I love these newer cars with the filters up top. I mean, this couldn't get any easier. This is just beautiful right here. And it doesn't go everywhere, like, oh, it's just perfect. It's like a Subaru, but I guess more reliable, but I don't know that I'm allowed to talk on that subject. Anyways, yeah, we'll go ahead and see what happens. What do you say, Days? It's hot out here, huh? If you've never done an Audi filter, they're a little different looking than other ones. So normally you just screw it on and screw it off. This one actually has like its own housing. And here's our old filter, which you can't really tell, but there is no metal shavings in there. I just checked. So that's good. And typically when you get an oil filter, like a whole oil kit, it'll come with your filter. And then also this O-ring, which seals the housing. So remember to replace that and be careful with it. But yeah, this just slides right on, and then you screw that right back up at the top, and it's nice and easy. And I like this because this is easy to inspect as well. Normal filters you got to cut open, which I hate, but these ones are super easy. I'm ready to go ahead and do the spark plugs as well as the PCV system. Now, luckily on this generation, it is so easy compared to the last ones. The last ones were such a pain because I did it on the last generation. So here's our PCV. I'm fairly certain every single bolt is exposed, which is like amazing. Now, I might have to take off the fuel pump. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked. But yeah, and it just has this hose that comes underneath here. Where's it at? Right there, and goes out right there and unclips, which that should be easy. You can just route that right through. As far as spark plugs, these are super easy. Take off that bolt, pull your coil packs off, and your spark plugs are there. So, got our new cap on as well. Oil's in. I only did the 5.2 liters to begin with because I want to set the car down level before I check the level of it. So then once we have those done, we'll get on to other things. Spark plugs are in, and before I put the coil packs back on, I'm gonna go ahead and do the PCV. So these PCV bolts are T30, and there's 7 of them on here. And then we have to disconnect at least one hose I'm seeing right there, and probably another one somewhere else. But it's gonna be very straightforward. If you're doing this, I mean, it's brain dead. I mean, you just undo bolts. That's really it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this, and I'll update you whenever it's off. As I suspected, I had to take off one hose. So there is this hose off the side here. And don't cut that off because you can't just, you know, slap it back on. You physically have to cut that off. Instead, I took this one off, and that's simply just a vacuum line. You can pull it right off there. And then you need to disconnect your PCV hose, which is this guy here. Now it's just screwed on with a bolt on top, and then you just pry that up and out, and it'll come off. And then this whole thing pops up out. You can see your cams and your cam cradle, and it's off. So we're gonna go ahead. Next is gonna be to get that hose off and then get it back on and replaced, and then swap this guy out. right, let's talk about this PCV vent valve for a second here, or this breather hose. Talk about making the easiest job the most difficult one. I mean, Audi cannot do it properly, ever. So it's back there, and on this stock connector, there was these two little, I don't know, like clips almost. I pried both of them off, just took them clean off, and it still wouldn't come out. This thing is like a press fit, like it's so tight, it's ridiculous. So I took a pair of channel locks and I sat there and I violently thrashed this thing back and forth for probably 5 minutes, and it finally came out. So if this thing does not need replaced on your engine, don't do it. It is such a pain, like holy cow. Once you have your breather hose sitting here, you got to get this metal piece out, because your replacement isn't going to be this exact fitting. You gotta take this out. So this was down in there just like that. I clamped this side in the vise pretty hard to the point where I was cracking plastic, and then I wrapped a rag around it, took my channel locks and wiggled and pulled up as I did that, and this came out. So now this piece is going to be in between there and the hose. We'll get that all tightened back down, and then we'll be on to the next step. Everything in the engine bay is officially back together. So we have our PCV, our breather hose, as well as our spark plugs are in, our coil packs are back and cleaned up, ground's back on, and everything's looking good again. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this area up, obviously, because I wanna know where it's leaking from. And of course we gotta deal with this. I'm gonna clean that whole thing off as well, because again, I need to know if it's leaking. So we got to clean that whole thing off. The whole underside of the car is disgusting. The whole side of the engine, I mean, the whole thing needs cleaned, which I need to look around for brake clean. I might not even have any, so we might have to wait till tomorrow for that. But we can go ahead and move on to the interior and install our cabin air filter, which is easy, and then our gauge, which is also easy. For the cabin air filter, you're going to take off 2 covers here, and then it is literally right there. It's that easy. So I'm curious to see how bad mine actually is, which I'm seeing a lot of stuff already. Oh my gosh. Look at all this. Try not to dump this all over my car. Alright. Not half bad, I guess. I thought it was going to be worse. But we'll compare this to our new one. There's the difference. Yeah, that'll definitely freshen things up. Wow. This has definitely not been changed at all, this whole car. The whole lifetime of the car, it's definitely not been changed. But we're going to swap that out, and then I'm going to go ahead and figure out how to get this gauge in. Alright, so I'm inside the car right now, and typically on the A3s, people will mount them on this side. But since my center vents don't work, I'm actually going to put it right here. I'm going to try to, at least. I think I can get a wire through there. So if I can route it across, I'm going to, because that would be a lot cleaner for me personally. So for these guys, if you don't know, you literally just, you can pull them out with your hands. Like, they're super easy. So we're going to get this guy out, and I'll show you the next step. So the next step of this process is to get the centerpiece out. So if you look down in, so yeah, right there, you can see you need needle nose, and you just clamp those 2 together, and this centerpiece will just pull right out. There's the centerpiece out. So then your gauge just goes right in there. We're gonna go ahead and unplug this. So this guy will then go right through the center of that. Now it needs to be oriented so that when it's closed, or when it's open, it's up like that. So that's open and that would be closed, but the open position is up. So you obviously want the gauge to be upward like that. So we're gonna feed this guy through there. And it should be about correct. Now you just feed that center part through. And then your gauge is installed. And your wire's out the back. Then the biggest struggle from this point is going to be getting that wire routed across. And our vent's still actually closed. You got to be a little careful because you don't want that to pinch that, but for my case, it doesn't really matter because they don't work regardless, so. All right, so I got this mechanics wire, so it's just hard. It's almost like solder wire. I don't even know how to explain this. It's just like wire. But I fed it down through this vent and it comes out right there. So now I'm gonna go ahead and tape my wire to this end and go ahead and pull it through, and then my wire will be down there. And then it's as simple as getting it around over to here, which should be very, very simple. So let's go ahead and get that done. All right, the vent pod is actually in now. Very, very clean. I love how this looks. The real challenge is getting it down there, and then once you plug it in over here, you can just tuck it, which is what I did. So we're gonna go ahead and turn this thing on. Actually, we probably gotta turn the car on, so we'll wait. All right, everything interior wise is done, exterior wise is done. We need to go ahead and get this cleaned up here and possibly clean up the car a little bit if I have the stuff to do it. And then, you know, get the bottom tray back on, get the top tray back on, and we were good to go. Well, that is officially it for the Audi right now. I'm so glad I got that maintenance done. That gauge looks amazing, which I'll go ahead and throw in some clips of it working. And that gauge actually does a lot more than just boost. It'll record like 0 to 60 times. It does AFRs. It does all sorts of stuff. Very cool gauge, and I got that off Marketplace for cheap, so I'm very happy with that. Yeah, that's probably gonna be it for the Audi for a while. I don't really need to make content with it because it's a cool car, but I don't really have much to do with it. So I'll probably throw in some driving clips and things like that here and there, but yep, that's the daily.